Dateline, Spokane, April the 6th, 1961. Hello folks, this is Ross Fleming of Fleming Recordings Nelson, speaking to you from the famous Pennington Hotel in Spokane, Washington. I have with me the popular manager of the Pennington Hotel, Mrs. Martha Denny Lafferty, whom we interviewed last August. I suppose I should say manageress, but that sounds too much like tigress, and Mrs. Lafferty is far from that implication. I know Mrs. Lafferty has lived a very interesting life amid interesting pioneer days, but today we are dwelling on some humorous sides of her life. Now, Mrs. Lafferty, I want to assure you that your previous interview was thoroughly enjoyed up in the Canadian Kootenays, and readily demonstrated how closely the western parts of Canada and the United States were linked in the early days. To most of our listeners, the Davenport Hotel has been a legendary name in Spokane, but I believe your beloved Pennington Hotel, on whose site the Davenport was built and still shares, has a much more colorful history. Now the floor is yours to tell whatever comes into your mind. When was the Pennington built? Well, I think this will come out in your story, I believe. So you go ahead, Mrs. Lafferty.
I'm sure you will agree with me that it's quite a well-known fact that every famous city, or nearly every city, first has a terrible fire before it becomes a city. So is the case of Spokane, Washington. In 1889, the town, as it was then, burned, but in a short time it began to take on a more substantial look, and in that same year, Mr. Louis Davenport built the Pennington Hotel. It was considered the hotel of the city at that time. Remember, this was 72 years ago. It has many fascinating features yet. Lovely mirrors and beautiful parquet flooring, which were real luxuries then. But the bathtubs still have their 4 crooked legs, etc. Well, to make a long story short, it doesn't compare with the world-renowned famous Davenport Hotel, which Mr. Davenport built in 1914. And at that time, it took 100 rooms from the Pennington, leaving only 40. The Pennington is of Italian architecture and very picturesque, and many years ago, what is now the Matador Room of the Davenport was then the famous Italian Gardens. There is a connection between the two hotels, and it's really all one, but they have always been operated separately. Of course, the little Pennington is very modest when compared with the world-renowned Davenport Hotel. They are owned and operated by the Western Hotel Incorporated. Mr. Q. E. Braden managed the little Pennington 40 years. He was a wonderful elderly gentleman, and I had the pleasure of working with him his 10 last years of life. He worked the desk up to 11 p.m. and went to his room and suddenly passed on. This was in 1951. James McCluskey, who is now manager of the Spokane Hotel, worked at the Davenport as a bellboy, and in due time became manager there, where he served in that capacity many years, in fact up to 6 years ago when the Western purchased the Davenport Hotel. One day Jim called me on my little switchboard and said, "Is this that little hotel on the corner of Foist and Post?" I said, "Yes, this is the super-duper deluxe side of the Davenport." So he always called me Super Duper. So that year I thought I would make him a little poem on the back of his Christmas card. Mr. McCluskey was our manager for 3 years after this, and I have made 3 poems which I used for his Christmas card. I'll try to give them to you and hope you enjoy them. I don't know as I have ever told you that Spokane is considered the friendly city. And of course the Davenport Hotel is known as the world-renowned famous hotel. This is my first poem. It so happened the other day in that friendly city not far away, to that hotel of great renown an exclusive guest her way had found. Judging from the way she looked, the best must be shown before she be booked. After seeing the choicest rooms they had, she looked perturbed and seemed rather sad. "Can you show me nothing better than these?" The clerk thought hard for his guest to please. Then, with a look of assurance and a nod of his head, "Follow me, madam, kindly," he said. "The super-duper not far away has none but the best, needless to say." They entered from the mezzanine. Her countenance changed, her face how it beamed. Such restful quietness was found over here, as the clerk graciously greeted this lady so fair, then showed her a room, and as the door opened, assured was the sale, and I am not joking.
That's very good. That is the first year, was it?
That's the first year.
I see, okay.
And this was the second one. This is the same lady. She's traveling. While traveling through the east part of the state, an old friend of mine I chanced to meet. She told me of an unusual hotel. We thought we'd find it and stop for a spell. The Davenport first came to my mind. "Oh, no," said she, "it's not of that kind. Of all the travel I've done of late, there's not one like it in any state." Through this friendly city we started to search. To find our abode, we were quite in the lurch. To that hotel of great renown, a comfortable seat in the lobby we found. We sat there resting. Our feet were in pain, and as I looked at her, the teardrops came. The clerk in charge noted the fuss, asked if he might be a help to us. She adjusted herself, wiped off her face, asked if he knew of this exclusive place. "Oh, yes," answered he to the lady so fair. "First, may I show you what we have here?" "No, thank you, sir. I've seen all you've got, and I'll never rest till I find that spot." He took us through their mezzanine floor, entering our hotel at the side door. Her countenance changed, her face how it beamed. Happier person I've never seen. It's just as it was, for which I'm so glad. Once you're inside, you just can't be sad. Now the name, if you please, since I'm out of my stupor. "Ah, madam," he said, "it's the super-duper."
Super-duper. Now, by the way, Mrs. Lafferty, how did the Pennington get its name, and how did the Davenport get its name?
Well, I am under the impression that the Pennington was financed by Mrs. Pennington, who was a sister to Mrs. Davenport. And of course, in those days, Mr. Davenport was not a wealthy man. He had a little waffle stand down here on the corner of Post and Sprague, right where the Matador room is now. And of course that burned during...
That was before the fire.
That was before the fire, and it burned. And I have always been under the impression that Mrs. Pennington financed the building of the Pennington Hotel. And naturally, the Davenport got its name, being named for Louis Davenport, who was the builder of it.
Mm-hmm. And, well, how would it come that a man that had recently been operating a waffle stand would be able to build a hotel? What assistance would he get?
Well, in those days, why, the railroads hadn't gotten out west, and the Great Northern was one of the first railroads to get out here, and the Great Northern Railroad assisted also in the building of the Davenport, and then there were many different businesses that I think had a hand in that too, but I can't just give you the names of all of them.
Well, that's very interesting. Now I believe you have the third epistle in regard to your relations between the Pennington and the Davenport.
Yes, this was my third one on the Super Duper, and I have recently used this at a party in the Davenport. The Western hotels every year give all their employees a beautiful party. It's given in the Matador, in the Marie Antoinette room, which is a very beautiful room. And all employees who have been employees for 5 years and over are invited to this party. So I was asked to give a poem, and so I used this third one, and this is my introduction to it. Tonight I am bringing you something altogether new in hotellery, an automatic aluminum hotel. I don't mind telling you I hesitate in giving this to the management of the Western hotels, in that they are always open for suggestions, and if they should use my idea, well, I'd be out of a job. I'm going back a few years and explain to you where I got my idea. It was when Jim McCluskey was our manager, and I went down to see him one day in his office. I said, "Mr. McCluskey, whatever are we going to do with the little Pennington? Seems there needs to be so many repairs, and when it was built in 1889, excavation was not made ample to carry a greater structure. Now, if we should take the building down, it would mean your kitchen, dining room, lounge, etc. So what do you say we fix everything up and leave it as it is, an old landmark, and let me wear a colonial costume and a white wig and carry a large ring of keys?" He broke in and said, "Wait a minute, you would really break us up. You'd have a waiting list as long as my arm and guests lined up to the street." I said, "Well?" Then this was what he said, "I tell you what, we could build an aluminum hotel." So this is what I'm doing. I'm going to bring you an automatic aluminum hotel. It's the front desk of the Davenport Hotel. Mr. Ralph Harding is speaking. "Ah, madam, you're back. We're glad to see. An assistance to you I'll gladly be. The super duper I'm looking for, I entered here at a side door. It was on the corner of First and Post. I've searched in vain and find I'm lost. On that corner today, a skyscraper I find. It shines like silver, most makes me blind. I entering the door, I read a sign. Press the button, it said, on the dotted line. This I did. As I closed the door, I shot right up to the topmost floor. No attendant was there. I noted a sign, "Help yourself to a room. Now's the time." Room numbers with rates on the wall was near, waiting for help, but no one appeared. Then, placing my coin in a slot, I found, and gee whiz, I dropped 3 floors down. It was a room you'd find in any hotel, but not super-duper. My courage fell. Feeling now I'd made a mistake, I got out of the place before it was too late. You were in the super-duper, my lady fair. There's nothing surpasses it anywhere. Oh, no, said she, put her hand to her head. You must be mistaken, sir, she said. Don't tell me, sir, it's been taken away. That's the only place I would ever stay. There'll never be another one just like that. For me, it's goodbye, and I'll never be back.
Well, that is very interesting, Mrs. Lafferty, in regard to your 3 poems that were written around the Christmas season. Now, have you any others that were concerned the Pennington and the Davenport?
Well, yes, I have one that I think might be interesting. I really had a great deal of pleasure writing these little humorous poems. And this was after the Western had bought it. And Mr. Bass, who is really the biggest man in the Western hotels, and the first year they owned the Davenport, he was here in the Davenport. Mm-hmm. So one night I was entirely filled. I had 100% house, and I thought, well, I'll just take a few of my guests over to the Davenport. And so 2 couples came in, and I said, well, I'm sorry, but I said, we haven't any rooms, but I'll take you over to the Davenport and see if they can take care of you. So I took them over and introduced them to the clerk and asked them if they would please take my overflow for tonight. So the next Monday I got a letter from Mr. Bass. He said, Dear Mrs. Lafferty, it has been called to my attention that you have been sending your overflow to the Davenport. This is just a word of appreciation to let you know we need the business and appreciate your thoughtfulness. Sincerely yours, Gordon Bass. Then down at the bottom he said, this calls for a poem. So I thought, well, I'll certainly fix him. So I wrote the poem and called it My Explanation. Mm-hmm. Summer was over. Our vacation was here. The happiest time of all the year. To my wife, I said, where shall we go? Spokane, she said, I love it so. Do you remember that unusual hotel? Oh, yes, the Pennington, she exclaimed with a yell. After we drove several hundred miles, the rose-colored Pennington, wife announced with a smile. We are in line now at the front desk. It's our only chance, but an awful risk. At last I stepped forward now to ask, a room, if you please, we'd like the best. The clerk was so sweet and smiled as she said, that room I just sold was the last one I had. Now we have our lean-to here on the west. We consider their rooms next to our best. Will you take one there just for one night? Back here tomorrow will bring greater delight. The Davenport really isn't too bad. Try one tonight. Please, don't look sad. We found it quiet over there. No hustle nor bustle. The room only fair. Back we came early, not taking a chance. Our reservation next time will be made in advance.
Well, that brings in the fact that it was painted the rose color. And that when was it painted the rose color?
Well, when they first bought it, I think it was they've owned it 6 years, and they painted it along the first year, and it was a rose color. But recently they have painted it an off-white, trimmed with the tile red. It's just beautiful.
I see.
And it cost between $9,000 and $10,000 to paint it.
What would make it cost so much?
Well, labor.
I see, labor and...
So much handwork on it. All the motifs are painted with the by hand, tile red, and it's quite a lot. The roof is made of tile in the red, and then they've matched that color in the motifs around the building, and it's really very beautiful.
Wow.
And I was so surprised at what it cost.
Yes, well, I should say so. Now, that's the end of that one, eh?
That's it.
Well, now, I'm sure you have some others that would...
Oh, I could keep on going.
Could you? Well, keep on going, then.
I think you'd tire the people, though.
No. What have you got now?
Well, every year, the police give a benefit ball.
Oh, yes.
And
what does the benefit go to?
Well, it's a benefit to the. I really don't know what they do use it for, but it's free to everyone. That it's a big ball and it's free, but they ask donations from all the different business houses.
Oh, yes. I see.
And so, and so they had sent me a notice asking for a donation, and I didn't pay any attention to it because, I don't own the hotel, and I didn't figure it was up to me to donate anything. But finally, they wrote me a little poem, and they said, "The grapevine has it, we're after you, 'cause your annual donation hasn't come through. Our paid files are listed from A to Z, but your name among them we do not see. We've asked you once, we've asked you twice. Now this little ditty makes it thrice. And so this reminder we mail to you in hopes you'll hurry and send it through. Whatever you give us, be it large or small, will be more than appreciated by us all. One thing for sure, we want you to remember, the ball is on the 18th of September. There's no admission. It's really true, 'cause the ball is for old friends like you. So come on down to old Nat Hall and bring your friends, one and all. Now please don't forget, 'cause we're counting on you to get that check to us, PDQ.
This was the Spokane Police Department,
Yes,
Oh, I see.
Spokane Police Department.
Well, now, what is your answer?
Well, I just thought, they're just not the only ones that can write a rhyme, so I'll write them.
Sure.
This is to Sergeant Harvey E. Hastings, General Chairman of Police Benefit Association, Spokane, Washington. Dear Sir, your clever rhyme I now have at hand. I'm writing this so you understand. Your grapevine has it you're after us. Our donation is minus instead of plus. We are a hotel only in name, being a part of that one of fame. It's in name only we're holding the fort. We're truly a part of the Davenport. The money we get we keep for a day, then lug it over to add to their pay. That's the way it is, I want you to know. If I only could, I'd send you the dough. Considering all and the way you holler, I'm digging down deep and sending $1. Now my conscience is clear, and good luck to you. May your dollars be many and not just a few.
Oh, that was very nice. Well, I guess they had a good laugh on that, too. Well, now, Mrs. Lafferty, I had no idea that you were such a wonderful poet. And I think I certainly have enjoyed these little poems, and I'm sure that the listeners to Tales of the Kootenays will, because you're almost in the Kootenay district. And anyway, we feel that you're very much one of us down here. And thanks very, very much for your contribution.
I certainly enjoy all those Canadian friends that come down. I have quite a few here in the house tonight.
Yes.
And they all seem to like to stop here. It's so convenient, and as long as I have rooms, I just have to fill them. I just put them in.
Well, it's certainly a wonderfully central place.
Yes,
a
it
central
is.
spot, and we've been coming here for some time now, and I'm very pleased to know that we're able to get our chances are pretty good of getting accommodation. Although you've turned it into a guest house, and you haven't the staff now that you used to have.
No, I haven't, and it is best to write in, and then I can always arrange to accommodate you if possible, and that's the best way.
Well, thanks very, very much for this little interview.
Well, it's been nice, and I'm very happy to. If you enjoy it, why, I've enjoyed it too.
That's fine. Now, just as I started to pack up, Mrs. Lafferty, among your papers you find another poem here, and I want to know what it's all about, so you might as well read that too.
Well, this story I'm about to relate is a true story. All names are withheld in order to protect the innocent. There is a wonderful, world-renowned, famous hotel. All others try hard, but in vain, to excel. With spacious halls and lobby grand, none could compare for a hotel fan. In their waiting line not long ago was a special guest, quite disturbed as she made her request. "You see, sir, I've traveled a lot," she said. "Don't want just a modern room with a comfortable bed, but a place that's quiet, a nice atmosphere, where clerks are gracious and offer cheer. Perhaps you don't know, my lady fair, not another hotel can with ours compare. It's world-renowned, famous, you see, wonderful rooms, you take it from me. This may be true, with one exception. I'm sorry, sir, if this casts a reflection, but I was told by a friend you have them here, a bit hard to find, but somewhere near. Each room is different. They have a spellbound effect. Not in any way, sir, do they show neglect. And the art they display simply cannot be bought. Evidence shows hours and hours of personal thought. The clerk was surprised, his brain in a haze. 'Twas nearing the time he expected a raise. You check in there, sir. You're out of this world. It's like a dream the fairies unfold. I'm sure, sir, there's only one of its kind. Be gracious, sir. Please help me to find. The clerk scratched his head and puzzled a bit. If he lost that sale, he'd most have a fit. He thought real hard, paced the floor a while, then turned to the lady and tried hard to smile. "Dear lady, if you don't like the rooms here, you see, our Pennington's the place. Try it and see." "That's it," she exclaimed, and almost jumped a foot. "Direct me there, sir. I don't need to look." Stepping up closely, fearing others would hear, direction was made to the lady so fair. Then, carefully slipping the boy $1, he hurried them off lest others would fall. She checked in over there, closed the door behind her. The world's hunting yet. It's unable to find her.
Oh. Well, thanks very much again, and I'm glad to include that along with your other poems.
Well, I hope that they won't all get dizzy.
No, I'm sure they won't.